Yeah, everybody get your seats. We are getting ready to get started. So if you haven't got your seat already, go ahead and sit down, get your drinks. I'll give everybody about 1 more minute to get situated. Welcome to session 7, where tonight we are going to be discussing family relationships. We are going to be looking at some healthy communication styles, some unhealthy communication styles. We're going to even talk a bit about recovery and how it looks how the dynamic of recovery looks within a family unit, healthy versus unhealthy. So we're going to do some stuff. I have a guest speaker, somebody that would like to come in and share her story, her testimony, a little bit about what she's been through regarding addiction and what it did in her marriage and with her family as a whole. And then next session is going to be, the next session is going to be the actual movie When a Man Loves a Woman. Now I have no rights to that movie. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. I know you guys know that, but I just want to say that so there's no copyright issues. I did not make that movie. I have no rights to that movie. I purchased that movie off of Amazon to show you guys, and we will spend a whole night watching that movie, and there's going to be a lot of dynamics that we're going to look at and kind of tear apart and then piece back together after the movie is completed. So tonight I just want to go over a few things before our guest speaker joins us. So healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships in family. Like, what does it look like? What would a healthy relationship look like within a family unit? Well, more than likely it would be a family who communicates, right? Not your aggressive communication style, not your passive aggressive communication style, but a healthy, assertive communication within all members of the family. So while you want to make sure there's a hierarchy and there's an order in your family, you also want to make sure that everybody, even the children, are able to talk about things that could be bothering them, talk about things that could have hurt them in their past. You want to make sure within your family that children, spouses, parents, everybody within the relationship of the family unit knows that they can talk and they can be heard. You don't want anybody to think that they can't share because they could get in trouble, or they don't want to share because they feel shameful. We want to make sure that negative types of emotions are pushed aside. We should keep those out of the family unit at all times. An unhealthy family relationship would have some variables that you would probably see going on, especially with regard to addiction, like alcoholism, substance abuse, and we would see some enabling going on. Now, enabling, which we'll also see in the movie When a Man Loves a Woman, is any time an individual is actually inadvertently helping somebody continue their addiction. So enabling is obviously going to be a form of lifestyle that you don't want to have going on within your relationships. Hiding certain things. So if you have somebody who maybe does have an addiction, either with alcohol or with a substance or with something else, even there's food addictions or sex addictions. We all know there's different types of addictions today. And if somebody in your family has this addiction and you find yourself trying to hide that behavior for them, trying to cover it up, trying to keep them protected per se, that's obviously going to be put into the unhealthy area. So we definitely don't want to be hiding behaviors, especially inappropriate behaviors. It's not that you need to go flaunt it or post it on your social media page. You don't have to do that, but you can definitely, in a healthy way, communicate with your loved one and share with them why you don't want to hide this type of behavior. And the importance of maybe going to counseling. Counseling, and nobody should ever not want to attend counseling. Now I understand that this type of counseling and this type of treatment is generally ordered by the state of Arizona or by your courts because you have a DUI. But there is nothing that should be shameful about stepping up and wanting to attend counseling to get healthier and to make your family healthier. Allowing behaviors to continue keeps people sick, right? So when we know something about somebody and we don't share it or we don't try and help them get better, we keep it a secret, and secrets will keep people sick. So if there's nothing that you remember from this session except one phrase, remember, secrets keep people sick. We don't want to stay in a secret life. Secrets are what makes unhealthy relationships even more unhealthy. So we want to make sure that we are sharing and that we are going to somebody we trust, and hopefully it's a counselor where there is a professional and ethical relationship and everybody can get on the same page change and we can work together to create a very healthy dynamic within the family unit. Oftentimes when we do see somebody in our loved one in our family move forward into recovery, it can be challenging even for the healthiest of an individual. So let's say you're married, let's just say you're married, and your spouse has been addicted to alcohol for the past 10 years of your marriage. And now all of a sudden your spouse has decided they want to enter into recovery. So they get into a recovery program, they go to detox, they're attending 12-step meetings, they have a sponsor, they have a brand new support system. What does that do for the spouse that doesn't understand that part of their spouse now in this relationship? So for the past 10 years of the marriage, it's been dealing with an addict, right? Now all of a sudden, this person is going to have to deal with somebody who's no longer an addict, and that dynamic has changed. We have to bring on board that they have a new support system. They might have a counselor. They might be attending daily meetings for the first 90 days. They could be working a 12-step program, which means lots of self-awareness, lots of self-insight, lots of just self-healing and self-recovery and soul wound healing. So there's going to be a lot of variables that goes along into recovery. And we just want to make sure that we are understanding of that. And if it's you, perhaps it's you, that you've stepped out in the relationship and you've decided that you want to make these changes. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to be healthier. There's nothing wrong at all. Just know that there's going to be not necessarily resistance or anger, but there's going to be some challenges with adjusting to the new you, okay? And that's to be expected, and there's lots of information within counseling sessions, within your 12-step program, lots of information that your sponsor and your counselor will have that they can help you with that, and that you can help your loved one with. There's also lots of programs out there. So if you're in a 12-step program, there's going to be another support program like Al-Anon that'll be for the family members. So there's definitely ways for everybody to get in, get help and get on board and help everybody to get healthier. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it's not unusual that when you're getting healthier for yourself and you're entering into some type of a recovery from a specific addiction, that you could face some adversity from those you loved. And it's not that they don't want to see you succeed, it's just that it disrupts the family dynamic that's been going on for so long. And even when that family dynamic was unhealthy. So now we have to make sure everybody in the unit wants to get healthy. I'd like to bring on board today, so Diana is someone that's been a part of the Family Careers on DUI services. I think of all of us as a family. When you come on board here, even when you're done with your education, you're done with your treatment, you're done with your screenings, you're rolling, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, you're rolling back with your license again, you still will always be a part of us, and you can always come to us with questions and anything. So Diana's a huge part of our family, and she's got such an amazing story and testimony to share, and she's wanting to do that. So I'm going to have her come out. We're going to talk a little bit for the remaining of the session. If you have to get up and use the bathroom, feel free to. You don't have to ask. You don't have to make it known. Feel free. And if you're watching online if you're watching live or you're watching recorded and you need to pause it to go do something, that's okay. So come on in, Diana. How are you? Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Can you introduce yourself? You might, and I just want everybody to know I'm wearing this, but she's not. So hopefully she can speak a little louder and you guys can hear in the back and you guys can hear online. We do have a microphone set up for her too. So here we go. Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, I'm Diana, and I am 41, and glad to be here.
Good. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. So Diana, the reason why when I was putting together this specific session, I was thinking about individuals that I know personally and professionally who have faced maybe addictions in their past, addictions with their spouses, addictions with family members, whether it be a parent. And I know that you are always willing to share your testimony. So I know you got married kind of when you were young. How old were you when you got married?
I was 21.
All right, so when you got married, how was it?
You know, at first it was great, just like every other marriage, but we were young and didn't really, understand what being married was like. So it started off good. My ex-husband always kind of had an addictive personality, so he...
We'll continue there, but what do you mean by addictive personality? What did you notice about him? And being young, that might have been kind of fun, right?
Well, yeah, he smoked weed.
Okay.
He liked to drink occasionally, but nothing that it's what I felt was normal at the time, being in our 20s.
Sure, okay. All right, so you did notice these that we'll probably call, for sake of a better phrase, red flags.
Yes.
So when you look back on it in retrospect, you're like, oh, those are my red flags. But at the time, you're enjoying life, you're young, you're free, and it's really not a big deal because we're not thinking about 20 years from now what it's going to be like with all those addictions. Okay. So he was fun, he was exciting, he enjoyed an occasional smoking of weed and drank occasionally. When did you start seeing it kind of get more severe?
Well, when we moved out, and then now responsibilities have to take place, like getting up for work and paying bills and those type of things. And obviously, when you are using different drugs, he moved on to something stronger, obviously, and that was meth. And you can't live a regular adult life when you're using.
Okay, so she's basically remembering and sharing that went from the weed and the alcohol to a substance that tends to be a little bit more dramatic in people's lives, which is methamphetamines. And if you have any kind of knowledge about meth, or you've ever used meth, or you know somebody that has, it can definitely be a complete game changer. And Diana's remembering that that's really where she started to see changes in her husband. So what were some of the things you saw that began to make him change? Was it physical? Was it emotional? What happened?
Well, yeah, I didn't know that he was using, so basically his sleep schedule was up. He was up all night, and then he couldn't. He had a job, and I think what his intentions were is going to help me to work, and it did the complete opposite, and things went bad. Losing jobs because he wasn't able to get up for that and go perform a job duty. So just different behaviors, just reckless behaviors that he would do. Sleeping, his physically changing because now you're not eating,
Right.
and
Okay, so physically you noticed that the sleep pattern changed. So that was a big deal probably because as a spouse you want to sleep next to your husband,
right,
or your wife or whoever you're married to, and you want to share that experience, or we have a regular. Americans tend to have a regular sleep schedule. Most of us sleep at night. I guess there's some that do work at night, but most of us sleep at night. And when that starts changing, that starts getting a little weird. And then you notice too that there was a change in his eating.
changing his eating. And then a big thing is when you're doing these types of drugs, you don't want to be around. He was gone a lot.
Okay.
Because when he's going out, he wants to be. You're not really comfortable being around your spouse that doesn't use this drug. So
Sure.
just just a bunch of different signs that.
So I'm assuming, even though you were still young, and as this was progressing, and you guys were growing in age, you weren't super, you were still young, but you were noticing these changes. So what were you coming to realize it, or were you still in that part of where you're like, no, this can't be happening. He wouldn't be doing this. He's just trying to find himself. Or were you still in the excuse part of your marriage?
Yes, for sure.
So were you doing some hiding and some enabling?
Yeah, I would never. You don't want to tell your parents that your husband can't help you with bills. He's doing drugs. All these negative things that were happening. So of course you just make up excuses for him. And at the time, I just kind of started my career, so I was paying the bills and I was holding up what everybody thought we were both doing.
Okay. And before Diana agreed to come on, we talked, pretty much a lot about what we were going to talk and share about today, with regard to this group. And one of the things that I want to remind everybody in here, or share with everybody, is that this has gone on for about 20 years for Diana. So Diana's got a period of where she learned about the addictions. She dealt in her own way with the addiction, as we're going to learn more about what happened with her marriage, and to where now she is today as far as the healing has happened. So Diana's able to talk about this and share so willingly with you guys because there's been some healing that's gone on. So I'm grateful that she's willing to do that. So get to the part where, and I've known her for a long time, so I know exactly what happened next, but there was a part after this started happening and you started recognizing it, and you couldn't keep it a secret anymore, right? You couldn't keep it hidden from your family. Your family was catching on. Like, where's your husband? Why isn't he at home? Why are you staying with us tonight? Why are you coming over here for dinner? Why isn't he with you? Why does he look weird? Because there were some times when he was looking different too, right? Yeah, so physically, we see those changes from not eating, from not sleeping, from not staying hydrated, poor nutrition. These are all physical changes that you're not going to be able to hide with any types of addiction, right? So even alcohol, methamphetamines, pain medications, all sorts of substances will changes at a molecular level. And because of that, we will physically begin to look different. And that's what Diana was noticing.
Right.
And it was hard to hide that from anybody because all of us were seeing the changes, right?
Right. I mean, everybody assumes and they know what's going on, and you finally just come to terms with it because you're so frustrated because of your situation. And at one point, we lost our current living situation. We were living in an apartment, and like I said, I was in the beginning stages of my career, so eventually it all caught up with me. Trying to, keep taking care of him financially and just all the responsibilities. So eventually my parents started to see that. I had to go move in with them, and that's where the beginning of a bunch of disasters began.
Okay, so again, so now Diana's at the part where the enabling is starting to fade. She's not wanting to enable this behavior anymore. She doesn't like what is happening to her family. She's not trying to keep it hidden anymore. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody's onto it, everybody knows, and she's no longer willing to keep it hidden. So you initially separate from him.
I initially separate from him, and this is the problem with addiction, I believe, is because even though I know this is not the lifestyle I want, and it should be very clear that I should get myself out of this situation. The addict has master manipulation, tools, and you love that person. At the end of the day, you love that person. So even though my intent was I'm leaving, I'm moving forward, I'm gonna go stay with my parents, the cycles just repeated over and over to where, because I didn't know much about addiction either then.
Sure.
So, it was 20 years of a lot of, so I don't know, I mean.
So you get to the part where she's initially beginning to desire to separate, but at the same time, there's a part of her that wants and desires that marriage to work. I think there's a part of that in all of us, whether it be a marriage or a friendship or even somebody with our parents. We want to mend that relationship somehow. It's just who we are. It's put into us innately. Our Creator has given us that desire to want to love, and when you're not able to do that, it kind of goes against who you are. But at the same time, you have to love yourself too, and it sounds like that's where Diana was going. She was realizing that, she was seeing the cycle, and although it wasn't physically abusive, there was a lot of emotional abuse going on. There was a lot of mental abuse and a mental exhaustion going on, and of course, spiritually, she couldn't grow in her desire to walk with Jesus because she's a Christian. She didn't know what to do. It was just so much against her. So she separates. I think there's a pattern of you separate, you go back, you separate, you go back. She kind of lived like that for a few years, and it was frustrating for her family. I mean, it tears apart relationships other than just with your spouse. So she's going back and forth. What are your parents thinking at this time? Because you're not only doing this to them, you're coming in and out of their house, and they're also seeing your sadness. They're also seeing this disruption. And at the same time, he's also going in and out of jail, right?
Well, they're frustrated at this point, so they want to help me, of course, because I'm their daughter. But then at the same time, they are setting boundaries of, you're not going to do this. You need, they're kind of trying to help me, but then I'm getting shut down as well too, because I still want to remain with this person that's continually hurting me and making bad choices.
So do you think you wanted to remain with that part of that person, or do you think that's how you were adapting, or did you really truly deep down feel that maybe there could be a change?
You always think there's going to be a change, and then your mind. I mean, you're just going through so many different emotions when you're in a relationship like this that I don't think you think rationally at all. So little thoughts in your head, just like, oh my God, he's going to change. He's going to be that husband I always wanted him to be, because he started off being what I thought I wanted to be with for the rest of my life. And so you always, little things like that would be his promises. He would do good for a week, 2 weeks. I mean, they go on little streaks too, where they're like, doing what they're supposed to be doing, acting like they're moving forward, acting like they're growing, they're getting help for their addiction.
Right.
And there just never was that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, and
that's like the pattern, the cycle, and until you break that cycle, this is unfortunately how it continues to happen. So although Diana has successfully broken that cycle, which we'll get to, a child comes. So what happens? So you're separated, and what happens?
We separated, and this time we were separated for, I didn't file for divorce, but I knew I definitely needed, at this point we had went through, our relationship was at its worst. The fighting was nonstop, and there's a lot of hate towards each other. It's just very, very bad. So we decided to separate, and it's a good year and a half, and I'm kind of doing my own thing, kind of, but I'm not. I kind of always held on.
Right.
And in the mix of that separation, he got another woman pregnant,
Okay.
and that was tough too because we're still technically married, even though I wasn't with him. Him on his, he's going out doing what he's doing, making still irresponsible decisions, and he gets an addict pregnant.
So there was so basically during his addiction, he met up with somebody
who was just like him.
Yeah, and they got together. They had this baby, but they didn't stay together.
They didn't. It was never like, I think it was just one of those things. It wasn't like he met this. He fell in love with this woman. It was just they did drugs. They slept with each other, and now Steve's gonna be a father.
Right.
And at this point, I don't really even like. I'm like, okay, and I'm just like, well, whatever. I can never be with you at this point. We stayed. He told me right away when he found out that this girl got pregnant. So the entire 9 months, I was pretty like, no, I'm not gonna do anything. Blah blah blah. And then he started working and acting like he was going to be this great father to this child. And he started so I started seeing, I haven't really seen him that much in the last year and a half, so I'm thinking, oh my God, he's really going to make an effort to change now. Like I said, I was still trying to be like, no, we're not going to continue with this, but I fell right back into the same trap again.
Yeah.
Except now, we have a child that's coming into this, scenario.
Right, okay. So now a baby's here, we've got this baby, the relationship hasn't changed, the addiction's still present, everything's still going on.
Right.
So now you're basically raising this baby, because why?
Well, yeah, so finally, Steve and I decided that we were gonna work on our marriage again, and part of that was now he has a son, so I think Clayton was like 7 months old, and he wants me to meet his son, and we spend the weekend together. And at that point, yes, I fall in love with Clayton that first date. Now Clayton's situation, he's been through tough, having two parents that are, have addictions. Right. He didn't really get what he deserved as well either from his mom. So immediately.
So wait, so what I kind of think and what I kind of felt is you felt like you were a victim in all this, and then you also felt the same for Clayton.
So I wasn't gonna allow that.
Yeah.
Like the pain that I've been through in this last how many years with his father?
At least a decade.
I was like, you know what? I'm stable. I'm gonna take care of this kid.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what she does basically. She steps in. Both parents continue to use and abuse drugs. Continue to be incarcerated in and out of jail, in and out of prison, and the addiction continues, the cycle continues. Diana made this decision to step in and take care of her stepson, and that's where we are today. So tell me, so now, at what point in Clayton's life, because Clayton is, share with how old he is now?
Clayton is 15.
So he's a 15-year-old boy now, young man. He's lived with you primarily for the last
7-8 years.
Yeah.
But before that also, I've had him every other weekend, like constantly in his life. Like it just wasn't every day.
Right. So he actually, when both the parents were incarcerated, he went and lived with maternal grandmother. But Diana was like the person that went and got him on the weekends and during the summers and stuff. So she was always the parent that he had. And then eventually he made a decision he wanted to come and live with her permanently. Everybody agreed upon that, and that's where they've been now. So at what point in your and Clayton's relationship did you have to say, hey, unless something changes with your parents, I don't know if it's healthy for you to see them, even when they're not incarcerated. Like, what point do you say that?
Well, Clayton, after, I've already been through this stuff, the lies, the empty promises, and the stuff like that. So now he has parents that, while they're out in, they're out of prison and stuff, they are not working, they're not supporting him, they're not even there for him as parents, let alone taking care of his needs he needs as a child. So when people go to, sometimes, not everybody, but in his parents, you go to prison and they have seen the light. I'm gonna come out, now, he's calling Clayton every chance he can, she's calling Clayton, I promise, and Clayton, you know, even though he looked at me like, you're the reason why you're my mom, he also, those are his parents too. And he had hope that they would come out
Sure.
and be better people, to better parents, and that just didn't happen. So years of in and out of prison with Steve, and his mom, who spent 5 years incarcerated. um, I just, seeing him, the pain he's had to endure during these times, I just finally had to say enough is enough.
Right, and that's what a big part of this session is going to be. And I want to thank you. I know that you're on a time frame, and she works in a hospital, and you have to get going. So feel free, you can go out the group room that way as I finish up. But I just want to, so thank you for coming and sharing.
No problem.
And that's a huge part of why I wanted so desperately to put the family session in, because I wanted you to know that during your addiction, or during the addiction of your loved one, or during the addiction of your significant other spouse, when a child is involved, it can be so incredibly detrimental. And as you've learned about all of this, you see exactly what the child had to go through. So he's 15 now, but you didn't hear all the time where he had to go and visit parents in prison, and he had to endure, Sunday visits in jail settings. And all with the hope of when you get out that you're going to be this great parent, and just to be let down again. To the point where he became at an age where he could actually have a say in what he wanted and what he did not want. So there was a sense of empowerment there for him. But I can tell you, no matter what, you can't just delete that and erase that from your mind. He's always going to remember where he's from, and what he endured, and what he saw, and what he's been through. And then he's always going to remember, too, who came in and essentially rescued him and saved him from all of that. So there's going to be so many different emotions, so many different thoughts. And that's why, as a family, we need to address these issues in the beginning. So this session is going to be ending, and I know that you have I left some worksheets for you guys, and that's great. So you'll have your worksheets to take home, and you'll have your worksheets, if you're watching online or you're watching live, you'll have your PDF formatted worksheets that you can open up and take a look at, just some additional information for you. Our next session will be When a Man Loves a Woman. I will play it on our projector for everybody that's here live, and for anybody watching it live. And for the recording, if you are watching this online, you can watch it too. It'll be recorded through our projector. Now, for any reason that it doesn't show up great for you on that end, feel free to pull up the video on Amazon, or see if it's on Netflix, and watch it. Go through it, and because we're gonna pick it apart when it's over. We're gonna pick it apart and look at the different family dynamics in it. So family session is a couple weeks long here. So we'll have some more time that we'll be talking about it and really diving into it. So thank you guys for today, and as always, if you have questions, you can contact me. We'll talk after group. If you have questions online, email me, call me. You can reach out to Paul. We're always here, and we will see you in a bit for our movie night.